Hello, and welcome to this month's Book of the Month discussion for the Lowcountry Book Club. With us today, of course, is Victoria Benton Frank, the author of our Book of the Month, My Magnolia Summer. We're so happy to have her. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we couldn't be happier to see you. And for anyone who is following Victoria's tour, she's in Nashville right now. She's talking to us from Nashville, Tennessee, where she has an event tomorrow night, I believe, at
Yes.
Parnassus. Is that right?
Yep, at 6 o'clock.
Okay. All right.
Hmm.
So if you're anywhere in the Nashville area, go out and see her. I know she'd love to see you.
Yeah.
So for anyone who has missed this, I just want to do a brief introduction. Victoria Benton Frank was born in New York City, raised in Montclair, New Jersey, but considers herself to have dual residency in the Lowcountry. She's a graduate of the College of Charleston and the French Culinary Institute. Victoria worked in restaurants in New York before returning to Charleston, South Carolina, which she considers home, with her husband, 2 kids, and a giant mutt. When she isn't writing, she's reading, cooking, or chasing her children. Wow.
Yep.
So it immediately strikes me that part of this journey seems to have made its way into the book, but we'll get to that in a minute. Victoria's debut novel, My Magnolia Summer, was released by HarperCollins on June 6th, and she's been touring ever since. So there are so many lovely reviews for this book. Charleston
Yes.
Magazine calls it a coming of age story. Do you see it that way yourself? Do you see it as a coming of age story?
Yes, absolutely. I think coming of age is something that we are sort of conditioned to believe happens when you're 13. But I think for women, especially, it happens multiple times. And I think that growing up is not a linear experience. So when, you lose a parent, you have a baby, you get really scared for the first time in your life that your foundation and everything all those things are formative to who you are. So I think my character comes of age around 30.
Right.
And
I
so,
think
yeah.
mine is still coming of age, and I passed 30 quite a long time ago. So I
Yeah,
understand what you're saying. I think that's very true.
for
Um,
sure.
so you grew up in New Jersey and you went to the College of Charleston. Given your roots in the area, I imagine much of your childhood was also spent in the Low Country. Yes, you clearly
Yes.
love it. Yeah,
Yes. So we spent every summer and every holiday down here,
right,
and it was
right,
or over there. I'm in Nashville right now, but in the South.
right,
So I never really and the North never felt like home to me.
right.
I love the honesty of the North, and I love that we shoot straight shooters, which I appreciate. But other than that, I always felt more at home in the South.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Okay, so did you come for college then and kind of stay? College of Charleston's beautiful campus. I can.
Yeah, I went to the College of Charleston and I stayed a little bit, but then did an extra semester. I have to think back. I did an extra semester, and then after that I went to New York. I went back to New York, and that's where I went to culinary school and met my husband, and then we moved back to Charleston because I hated it.
Oh,
I couldn't wait to come
actually,
back home.
I took a few courses at College of Charleston myself. I love that
Cool.
campus. It's
Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous.
beautiful.
Okay, so the Low Country is home now, and obviously that's your literary landscape.
Yep.
Magnolia Adams seems to have quite a few things in common with you. Do you identify most strongly with that character? Is there perhaps a bit more of you and her than the other characters in the novel?
I think all the characters are me to some extent. I
Mm.
think that Maggie was definitely the closest to me when I started writing it. But I'm a lot older than Maggie is. And I think that when I was 28, I had a temper like her, but now I'm just too tired to have a temper now.
I hear you.
So, and I think I probably identify more now with Violet, who I'm
Ah,
writing in the next book. But
ah,
yeah, so yes and no. I mean, obviously, like lifestyle, sure. Like I was an aspiring chef in New York as well, and I went back home just like Maggie does. So
mhm.
yes, but we're different too.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about the inspiration for Magnolia's best friend, Jimmy. Did you have a best friend in New York who was an actor?
I had a childhood best friend
Yeah.
that was an aspiring actor who was a lot like Jimmy, but
Mm,
I hadn't talked to him in a while, but I remembered how much fun we used to have together. And so
mhm.
that's what inspired his story. And then I also really like the character Lafayette in the True Blood series. So
Ah,
the television show at
mhm,
HBO, and that was a hot show when I had started writing this. And I just thought he was so great because he always told the truth and he could say
mhm.
whatever he wanted with a joke, and he was
Right,
very
right, right.
endearing. So I kind of combined my childhood best friend and that character, and that's how I came up with Jimmy.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
he's great.
All, all of these characters are just fabulous, and they
Oh, thank
each have
you.
their own little, they're very unique.
Yeah.
So I probably have questions about all of them. But these Southern women, your multi-generational Southern women, they have some complicated relationships. I
Mhm.
love that you deal with sisters. I have a sister myself. Um, was there a personal relationship that inspired this storyline?
So no, actually, quite the opposite. So I played with opposites. I had a great relationship with my mother. I never had a sister. I didn't really know my grandma, and so I kind of wanted to play with what that would be like if I had a
Mhm.
sister and a bad relationship with my mom and was raised by my grandmother. So I sort of romanticized the problems that could come up with
Right.
that, and came up with the storyline. But so
You
it's
did a
it's
good
strictly,
job.
thank you. It's strictly fiction. I have a lot of close, I'm a girl's girl, so I have a
Right.
lot of close women in my life. And I
Right.
think because of that, I was able to sort of pick up the nuances of difficult relationships with sisters and mothers and grandmothers. So
Right, right, right.
yeah.
Okay. So, what about the character of Lily? Obviously, nothing like your mom.
No,
What inspired the backstory for Maggie's troubled mother?
I think again, I just wanted to see what, like, how horrible, and I don't know. I mean, she's a dancer and I was an aspiring dancer for a while, so I
Mm.
understood that headspace very well. And I
Right,
think I just wanted to play with how horrible it could be to have a competitive mother, and how
right.
that could really just eat away at you, and also not living up to your mother's expectations. Like, my mom and I were so close, and even when, like, she'd be like, "You're great. You're I'm so proud of you." And I was like, "You're my mom." We're best friends. It was just like I always exceeded her expectations, like, in her mind. She was such a sweetheart, and, like, anything I did, she was proud of me, and so
Right,
I was like, what would it be like if I had a mother I couldn't please?
right.
And what would that feel like? And how would that hurt and ache? And so I wanted to write about that.
Wow. I
It's
l-
pure fiction.
ah, I love the scene where Maggie and Lily just kind of lose it together, and they're breaking things and crying, and there's this cathartic moment for both of them, it seems.
Yes.
Tell us about writing that scene.
It was very emotional for me to write that scene. I was really just swept up in it. As you know, like, characters that you live with, they live with you and they're in your heart. So I loved this idea of them just breaking things. Like, when you're so mad, you just want to throw something. So, like,
Yeah.
that just, and so it was this destructive um, breakdown of sort of their judgments towards each other. And
Mhm,
they just decided to let it rip and laugh through it and sort of heal in a moment.
mhm.
I just really got swept up. That's what it was. But it was I had music going, I had a candle lit, I was really into it.
Yeah.
And I was feeling all those things because I love Lily and I love Maggie, and I wanted to feel like what it would be like to break up and make up within a scene.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that was amazing. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed that.
Thank you.
So Buster was such a multifaceted character.
Yes.
And someone in the group said, every time I started to strongly dislike him and chalked him up as a total loser,
Mhm.
another good facet of his personality would show itself. I
Mhm.
still disliked him overall, but it seems like you had a great time writing him. Did you
Yes.
purposefully try to make him a little bit likable?
Yes. So I think all good villains, or all good antagonizing characters, are slightly sympathetic.
Right,
Um, and it makes it more complicated, when you love somebody you hate, even
right.
if it's a platonic love. So Buster is inspired by just somebody who would challenge me at every turn, but still likable. He's a
Mhm.
jerk, but he's got a big heart,
Right, right.
you know.
So, um, how did this story well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Where did the inspiration come for a family with flower names for the women? That was a nice
That
touch.
it's funny, like, some of these questions, this is like, you're a writer too, so I'm sure you know that it's hard to answer it because it comes from a place I don't even know
Right.
where it comes from. I love I love the name Magnolia, and I
Mm,
just sort of played with that, and then I thought, "Oh, wouldn't it be cute if the grandma was called Ro?" And then I was like, "Wouldn't this
yeah,
be fun?" And so then I it was just sort of
I
an
get it.
idea. I just kind of ran with it because I ran out of names. At first I had named them other things, and it
Mhm,
just sort of annoyed me.
mhm,
So I just then started naming people after the flowers in the family. It just worked for me as I was writing.
right. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Um, So how did this story come to you? Was this always Magnolia's journey, or did you set out to explore some of the complications involved with owning a generational family restaurant?
So, a couple of things. So it was kind of a hodgepodge of how it all came together, which I think everybody's first novel sort of is. It started out as one thing and then turned into another. I had anticipated that it had just been Maggie, but then the editors that I worked with, they told me, try to write the scene from this perspective, and then I had written those dream scenes from the
Mhm,
grandmother's perspective, and then I wrote a couple scenes from Violet, and I started to like and learn how to write in other people's voices, and I
mhm,
really enjoyed that process. Um, this story came about. It was this particular story. I was inspired because there was a restaurant in my family called the Magic Lantern. That was my great grandmother's in Charleston. And so,
oh,
yeah, and it was around in the 30s and the 40s, and it was a fried chicken blue plate place. And so
wow.
I love the meat and two sides, and so I thought it was super cute that it was in my blood, and that
Mhm,
because I was an aspiring chef and she was, a chef, I thought, oh, cool, maybe I could write about that. And I think me not being a chef anymore, this book is sort of how I dealt with that breakup
mhm,
of not being attempting to be a cook anymore. So that's where the inspiration went. And then I really just love multi-generational stories in the South. I mean,
right.
resilient women are the best. And throw in some really great side characters like Alice and Jimmy. And I think it just enriches the story.
Right.
Southerners are so good at dealing with crises, and we have a sense of humor and a smile and some style about it, and I love it.
How did you transition from the restaurant industry to publishing? Tell us about that.
It was a long process. So I started writing kind of as a dare from my mom. She was like, "Oh, I bet you could do it," and I'm like, "You're crazy! Like you're so good at It's like listening to like Madonna tell you could be a singer. You're like, yeah, it's easy for you. It's not going to be easy for me." But I tried it because I've always been a storyteller,
Mhm,
and I've always loved to read. I'm a big reader, and my mom and I, my mom was like, "Oh, you're so funny. You'd be so good on the page." And so I just tried it and it happened and it kept going. And then I made it past like 25 pages and I was like, "Ooh, let's see if I can get to 50." And it was just kind of seeing what I could do. And then my mom got a hold of it, even though I told her it wasn't ready. And she convinced me that I have a gift and I should explore it and that it's a shame if I don't. So I
right,
tried, and that's how it happened. And it took a long time. I had a lot of things happen to me from the
right.
beginning to where I am now. I lost my mother, I had two children, I got married, not in that order. Um, and there was a pandemic, and I was still working during the day as a cook, and then I worked at Anthropology as a personal
Mhm,
shopper, which was so fun. Um, but so it took a while for me to be able to clear out my schedule to really devote time to writing.
right.
So it took me a longer time, although I'm like probably 30% through the second novel now, and I started writing this year. So you get better at it.
Right. So I read somewhere, I think it was your author's note, that the first draft of this book of My Magnolia Summer was like 700 words.
Yeah,
So did you like take that and sort of you're breaking that story up
cleave
into
it.
multiple books
Yeah.
or
Well, so I wrote 750 pages, just like insane. And we cut it in half. And
yeah.
then I started to really like this Violet story. So I'm going
Hmm.
to take the second half that I chopped off and mine it,
Hmm.
because I don't want to throw it in the garbage can. But
Right.
I like Violet's story. So it's going to be the sister story next. And so that's my next book.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm going to ask you more questions about that in a minute because we'll get into that. But well, actually, so there a lot of people are interested in this next book. We have a lot
Yeah.
of questions in different forms about that.
It's because y'all are reading
So
it too fast. That's what's
I,
happening. Like,
that's what happens. Yeah, it takes you a
oh
long
my
time to
God.
write, but we read pretty quick, and then we want that next book.
Oh
That's
my
how it
God, y'all
works.
slow down. It took me so long to write this thing. Jeez Louise. Yeah. Like I read it in one
Oh.
night. I'm like, oh God.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So Cynthia Varney says, is she writing the sequel yet? I think you've answered that for us.
Yes, I
So,
am. Yep.
um, uh, let's see. Chrissy Rosen says, lots of loose ends left for the next novel.
Mhm.
Will they get the book sorted out at the restaurant? I wonder if he got his investment back and then some. Was it really an investment in the restaurant? Was her mother? Were they trying to run it in the ground to sell the property? Her mother was living pretty fancy. How did she afford that? Are all of the answers to these questions in the next book, you think?
Most of them. I think some of
Okay.
this, I'm not really focused on Lily's financials so much in the second, but because she sort of goes on this different journey and she's sort of out of the second book. She's still in it, but she's
Hmm.
not, well, right now, I mean, that could change, but right now, Lily is on a journey.
Right.
And it's
Right.
really Violet's story and it's a totally different thing. But yes, the stories that are the questions that are looming will get
Hmm.
answered in a second.
So that cruise that Lily went on, is that a real thing?
No,
I was curious about that when
no,
I was reading
but
it.
man, it should be.
It's a great idea.
It's a great
Yeah.
idea. Maybe
Yeah.
writing doesn't work out for me. Maybe I can do a rehab cruise.
Well, and not even just a rehab cruise, but maybe like a tune-up cruise, where women can go and do the spa treatments and
Yeah,
the yoga and all the things, and just go and like have a
just
girly.
have a moment. Yeah,
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 yeah. And all the memes that are on Facebook where women say, I want a vacation where there are friends and books and
yeah.
so this could be a thing. It could be a
It could
cruise
be.
with books and women. I see a sideline for you here.
I mean, this is a good idea. I mean, maybe I
I
should just
think it is.
flush that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had read an article about an old lady, or no, there's several old people that instead of living in a nursing home, they
Mhm.
found it was cheaper to live on cruises. And
Right.
so they would spend their retirement money traveling the world on the cruise. And so because of that, I was like, man, like that's an interesting, so
Hmm.
alternative uses for cruises, I think is where
Right.
that idea came from.
Right. Well, it's a good one. It's a good one. Somebody should do that.
Somebody should do it. Yeah, not
Yeah.
me. I got to write a book.
No, not me. All right. So Catherine Holum wants to know, what was your favorite part of the writing process?
Falling in love with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think my favorite part is, at first it was really grueling. Um, it was really difficult for me to sit down and discipline myself to write every day. And
Hmm.
learn that, you can clean, sorry, my husband's in the room. We're just, um, but to learn that you can clean up a mess on a page, but you can't clean up nothing, so to
Right.
make yourself right, I think was the hardest part. But my favorite part was definitely like the channeling of that creative process and the flow that
Hmm.
you feel when the words just come,
Hmm.
and and loving to show up to work at my desk every day. And I
Right.
loved working with an editor because I could surprise her. So I had an audience. I loved having an audience.
Right.
Um, and it was interesting. And then I think my favorite part is tour. I love tour. I love meeting the readers, and it's so surreal. It's like someone's like, "Oh, I love that part in the book where, Maggie says that coffee pulls the Jesus right out of her." And my first response is always to be like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "Oh, because you read the book." So it becomes like this, it's a shared world now. It's not just like
Right.
in my head, so that's
Right.
that's really cool too. So
So when you sit down to write the book, or when you write now, and maybe this process has evolved for you, but are you a plotter? Did you plot any of this out, or did it all just kind of come to you and you just wrote it down as it came to you?
both,
Yeah.
both. I have an outline and
Mhm.
an overview, so I know like where it's going to go, but the in between is something that just comes to me. And things take turns, that I don't expect. And I think I always leave my endings open, because the
Right.
best stories are the ones that don't turn out the way you want them to. And the ending I thought I had 30 more pages, and I wrote 15 and I was done. I knew when it was done.
Yeah.
So the ending I wrote in like a one take, which was really cool because I was sort of putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. And then I wrote a really bad ending. And then I took the last 50 pages and threw them in the garbage can, and then rewrote the last 50 pages with my editor. And I did it in like a week. It was like so quick. And it happened like just one shot, and it was perfect. And it's, like when you get to the end, you're like, I don't know. I don't know. And I just wrote it, and I was like, that's it. That's it. That's it. It's over. I finished. And it was this unbelievable rush. Maybe my favorite part of the writing process was finishing the book.
Oh, I hear that.
Yeah.
So now we really need to talk about Sam.
Oh, yes. I love him.
M- My goodness, have you ever personally met a farmer doctor, or did you just set out to write a fantasy for women? Is he
Yep.
like the universal fantasy
I was
for
just
women?
doing my service, to the American public by
We
providing.
appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome. It was my honor.
He was quite the character. Was there an
Yes.
inspiration for him?
I'd like to say my husband, but no. He's purely fantasy. I love the idea of a good guy, but who's also a little bit naughty,
Mhm.
who heals. And I love I mean, I've always found like this incredible link between people who work with the earth and farmers, I mean, and doctors, like you're healers in different ways. And
Right.
so for me, like the whole medicine, natural medicine sort of cycle of life
Mhm.
was sort of very romantic to me. And so I love the idea of someone who was a good son, who worked with his family on the farm, but also pursued his own dreams. Because in a way, he's found a marriage between those two personal dreams and family legacy, just like Maggie struggles with. And so I didn't intend that, but that's what happened. And I love him. He's loosely based on Matthew McConaughey and a guy I used to work for who used to scare the crap out of me, but he
Mhm.
actually had yellow eyes. And so I thought it was so cool to like put those together.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I
That's
love that.
interesting.
Yeah,
I use Matthew McConaughey as an actor in my head for one of my characters too.
so cute.
Yeah,
I
yeah, and
love him.
I'd love to hear him talk,
Oh,
just, ah,
did
eh,
you read Green Lights, his book?
I have not read that, and
Okay, don't
I
read
think
it.
yeah,
Listen to
listen
it
to it.
because
Yeah,
he narrates it,
yeah.
and
I
it's great.
I need to do that. It's
Yes,
on my list,
I know the
it's
to
been a
read
crazy
list.
yeah, crazy year, but it's on my list.
Yeah.
So backing up a little bit to the whole restaurant, the way you explore restaurants in your book, that was fascinating for me,
Oh,
and I think
thank
a
you.
lot of readers. So you have that background. You're a chef, yes,
Yes.
and your husband's a chef, and
Yes.
you have all this restaurant um, inspiration to pull from.
Hmm.
So as you were writing this, or did it make you like miss it? Were you like pulled back and like, oh, I want to go do this again? Because it sounds fun.
Yeah, it was fun, but it
Yeah,
was also grueling. I think a
yeah.
couple of things on that. So, I really feel like everyone's a little obsessed with the restaurant world right
Mhm,
now, and people like love to see behind the scenes, and
mhm.
you're like, oh, is it that rough? If is it that bad? Is it that intense? And it's worse. I had to actually scale back a lot in the book because my editors would be like, no one's going to believe that this happened. No one
Oh,
want to go
wow.
eat at a restaurant again, and it's true. It's brutal. It's brutal. And it's 90 hours a week, for $8 an hour with no health care, no overtime. You're just like battling it out in a basement. It's hard.
And
Um,
why does anybody do that? I mean,
I don't know. I think we're brainwashed a little bit. We like adrenaline.
yeah,
It's kind of like working like in a brigade in the army. I mean, just like it's a brotherhood for sure.
yeah,
And it's creatively challenging and it's physically challenging and it's cool. I mean, it's
yeah.
really fun, but I don't want to do that anymore.
I don't blame you. I think your current gig looks a lot better.
Yes, and I make more than $8 an hour, so that's helpful.
Right. There
Hmm.
you go. So, but your husband is still a chef, yes?
He is,
And
yes.
locally
Mhm.
in the
He's at the
Charleston
Post House
area?
in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Really?
Hmm.
I did
Yep.
not know that.
You gotta go
And
say hi.
I recently ate there and it
Oh,
was fabulous,
oh, yay!
absolutely fabulous. My husband and I had lunch there. We were down there. I
Great.
can't remember why we were in town. Probably, I don't remember, but it was fabulous.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so, oh, I'm going back soon. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like because we eat a lot of plant-based things, and there were multiple
Oh,
things that we could eat on the menu, and
yep.
we were so happy about that. So anyway,
Yeah.
we're definitely going back. It's
It's
amazing.
yeah, I love it. Thank you for that. It's a very diverse menu, and I think that they are extremely creative within the parameters that make sense for the area.
Mhm.
But sometimes when you have these really creative chefs, they just get weird, and
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know what this is, but they have approachable food. It's
Yeah.
approachable food, and it's still very creative and different. So I love
Oh, it
it. I
is.
love it there, and
Oh,
it's
yeah, I
cute.
do too.
It's a
Yeah,
cute
yeah, yeah.
place. Yeah,
Oh, I was taking pictures of the restaurant because it was just such a great place.
yeah,
And of course, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to set a scene here, because
yes.
it's
Do
just
it.
that kind of place is beautiful. But
Do it for
anyway,
sure.
I've gotten off track. I was surprised by that answer, and because I didn't know, but I was surprised by that, and because I've so recently been there, now I'm like, okay, where am I in these
Uh,
questions? All right, so I've already asked you what's next for you, but
yep.
D. Clark puts a finer point on the question: when is she planning on the sequel being released?
I would love for it to happen next summer. I'm
Yeah.
really trying to do a book a year like my mom did because people
Mhm.
really want that, and I want to give that to them if possible. So that's always my goal. I do have two small children, so things get a little hairy trying to get a book out a year.
Right.
So I think I would. The goal is every year.
Mhm.
The goal is
Okay.
every year, and it might be every 18 months. I don't know. I'm doing the best I can to
All
get it out
right.
every year.
Well, we're impatient, of
I know.
course, because
Yes.
that's the
Mhm.
nature of the game.
Yep.
But we will wait and be excited when it comes.
Thank you.
So, do you foresee this being then a series of books about these same characters?
Yes. So initially I thought it was going to be a one and done. But I
Hmm.
fell in love with Violet, and I can't talk about it for those that haven't read the book, but her arc is
Right.
sort of what I went through the last couple of years. And so I
Wow.
love that topic and I want to write about it. So that's what I'm writing about. And so I loved her. I couldn't let go. And then I love historical fiction.
Hmm.
And love Southern historical fiction. And so I
Hmm.
think I'm going to attempt to write the great grandmother Daisy story, who we don't
Oh,
know a lot about in the book, but she's
right.
the one that started the restaurant. So I love that. And then I want to write Rose's story. And then I want to
Hmm.
write Lily's story. So I'm gonna
Okay.
keep up. It's at least 5 books, if not 6. And then I love a Christmas. I mean, I'm really
Hmm.
into. I love the idea of maybe doing a Magic Lantern cookbook one day. So
Hmm.
these girls, I think, are going to be with me for a while.
Right.
Yeah,
I was very intrigued by the fried chicken, the way you described in
yeah,
detail how that's done,
yeah,
because my mother makes really good fried chicken, and I've often tried to imitate it, but it just never quite comes out exactly the way she does it. So I'm
yeah,
reading with interest the whole fried chicken thing. So I'm
yeah,
looking forward to the cookbook.
yeah.
That'll
Well, I think
that'll
I think fried chicken is it's such a simple recipe or a simple
Mhm.
process, but
Right.
everybody does it a little bit differently, and I think
Hmm.
you just have to find your way, to
Right.
do it. But I mean, there's no bad fried chicken. All fried chicken's good, even if it's
This
not
is
great.
true.
It's still good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is true. Yeah. Well, my mom's is pretty special, so
yeah,
I'm always gonna that's gonna be the bar for me.
yeah. I
I'm
got it.
gonna keep trying to do that. All right. So, is there anything I haven't asked you that that you think we should know about?
Hmm. Um. No, just stay tuned. And
Yeah.
thank you. I mean, like I'm so wildly grateful and blown away. I mean, I was a Publishers Weekly bestseller, which was like I almost fainted when I saw. I was 21 out of 25, which I know is not like top 10 or anything, but like even that I was on that list. And I looked at
Hmm.
the other I was the only debut writer. I was the only hardcover debut. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to live this dream and to chase it. And it's such an honor to inherit some of my mother's readers, and the wild support that I've gotten from people is just it's it floors me every time. I'm
Right.
shocked when anyone wants to read my book, picks it up, talks to me about it. It's the biggest hug I could ever get.
Oh.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm just really, really grateful, and I'm excited to keep going.
Well, we're excited for you to keep going. We can't wait for the next one. We're
Thank you.
excited to hear uh, Violet's story, and then all the women in the family, and to continue their journey and to find out some of the answers to the questions. I'm particularly interested in Rose's story. There were
Oh,
some things alluded to in this book that
yeah,
I really want the answers to. So I'm excited. So
yeah.
we're
Rose is
wasting
great.
time here. You need to be writing.
You're right. I got to get
I'm
right. My
teasing.
husband's like, when do you get back up to your book? I'm like, when I get home. So next Friday or Monday, I'm going to start writing again, guys. Don't worry.
All right. All right. Well, we'll be waiting. Thank you so much for
Thank
taking the
you.
time. I know you're on tour and you're super busy, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And it's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to talking to you again when that next book comes out.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your tour.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.